Greetings to the young men and women of Kerala origin who are now living and working or even studying in countries outside of India, who actually constitute the second generation of expatriate Keralites. I am making this video particularly keeping in mind your predicament. I hope you find these reflections relevant and useful. I've had the occasion to spend a lot of time with families living overseas, and what I'm going to say is based on my direct first-hand knowledge of the realities comprehended in your situation. It is very likely that you have not come across these insights from other sources because not enough attention has been paid to the very special requirements, special needs of young people in this category. You're not really in the mainstream of Kerala consciousness for the simple and obvious reason that you're outside of Kerala. Yet, there is something very special and interesting about your predicament, your situation, or their condition. Condition is the word that Hannah Arendt, the very stimulating German Jewish thinker who became a citizen of the United States, uses. And I recommend to you her book titled The Human Condition. So I prefer to use the word human condition rather than human predicament or human plight. This is not the time for me to go into semantics and explain to you the difference between plight and condition, etc. That's why I gave you this reference to Hannah Arendt in her book. And if you read that book, this will become very clear. All right, let me stay focused on your predicament. What is the diasporic predicament of the second generation Malayalis in other countries? Second generation Malayalis in the sense, the first generation are the people who went from Kerala in search of employment and better avenues of life to other countries. They got employed, they settled down, they worked very hard, they made the opportunities good, and children born to them who have been growing up in these countries other than India, they constitute the second generation. So that's why I say that they are the second generation in diaspora. So these thoughts are addressed specifically to your condition. Now, perhaps you have realized this, that you are in a very special kind of a situation. What is special about your situation? Your parents belonged body and soul to Kerala. The language they speak, the language in which they dream is Malayalam. Their food habits and their tastes are all Malayali. Their imagination is Malayali. Their accent is Malayali. Everything about them is Malayali. They actually carry Kerala with them. That is not the case with you in the second generation. You were born there, you have been growing up there, and therefore you got more and more exposed to the societies in which you are growing up. However, on the domestic front, you are continually with your parents who belong to Kerala, who are typical Keralites. In fact, Keralites become more Kerala-like when they are outside of Kerala. Your parents have a tendency to cling to the Kerala way of doing things, to adhere to the Kerala norms, Kerala mores, Kerala social standards, social stereotypes, Kerala way of looking at things, so on and so forth. All the baggage that comes with being a Keralite. But that is not the case with you. You are actually more than 1 foot into the American society or the English society or the Middle East society, wherever you are living. and the other leg is tenuously planted in the Kerala situation or Kerala milieu, Kerala flavor. But even that leg is slowly shifting because you're moving. But this is something that your parents will find very difficult to accept. And therefore, I have seen a lot of tension and clashes, the intergenerational tension and clashes in Malayali homes settled down, homes of Malayalis who have settled down in other societies. And I've seen this more acutely in Malayali homes in the United States of America. So a cleavage develops between parents and children. As it is, we are living in an age, whether you are in United States or in India or wherever, the modern age is an age of alienation, an age of atomization. The sense of old coherence and family solidarity of belonging together, of the elderly people passing on some family values, some sense of family identity to the next generation, all that's gone. We are living in an atomizing and atomized society. So a society of discontinuities. And therefore, the problem of this generational tension or generational discontinuity already exists, and it becomes 10 times more aggravated in the diasporic state, and that is why I'm sharing these thoughts with you. Now, if you look at this problem from an anthropological perspective, you will find that when a person migrates from one culture to another, as it happens in the case of the diasporic plight, the first generation is zealously reflective of or committed to the culture and the land they have exited. They carry Kerala in their hearts. And they try to recreate Kerala in Detroit, in Washington, in New York, in Texas, whatever. But the second generation is a transitional generation. And this process of change from the Malayali mold to the American mold will happen only over a period of 3 generations. Your parents, you, and your children. You are now about 75%, 80% American and about 20% Malayali, which you don't realize because many of you don't even speak Malayalam. Even so, because you have grown up in a Malayali home, even though in United States, you are about 15 to 20% still Malayali. But by the time your children grow up, or in the days of your children, that is the grandchildren of the first generation Malayalis who went into diaspora, they will be 100% American, 100% British, 100% French, 100% German, wherever you are, right? Now, if you keep this at the back of your minds, then certain practical consequences will become clear. They have to be addressed. As young people, it is very natural that you get very excited about the norms of the society in which you are growing up. And the context of America, freedom. Americans equate life with freedom. And at times freedom degenerates into license. That's an issue. But that's not the case with your parents. Your parents have come from a very hierarchical sort of society. And their expectations concerning you are all shaped within this hierarchical mode of thinking. And they have no idea of this American idea of freedom. And therefore, there's every likelihood of a head-on clash between you and your parents when you try to assert your right to be free. And in such a context, and that's why I'm making this video, I plead with you to try and understand this intergenerational change dynamics. The fact that unlike other American children or young people of your age, you are in a very unique state. You are a generation in transition, and therefore you have to hold your parental generation with one hand, and you have to hold the next generation, your children's generation, as and when they come, in the other hand. You are in between. You are a transitional generation. And therefore, and it's not an easy thing to be a generation in transition, because you have your legs in both completely different blocks. In such a context, it will be very noble of you to be a little more understanding about the plight of your parents. Why is this necessary? This is necessary because you got to know the American standard of liberty, the American way of life, the American idea of being young, etc., only because your parents had the faith, hope, the sense of enterprise and adventure to leave their homes, their homeland, all that was familiar to them, and go in search of better prospects into a country, into a context with which they were utterly unfamiliar. Perhaps you don't understand what it takes to do this. I faced on 2-3 occasions the opportunity or even the temptation to settle down in another country, another society. On each of those occasions, I pulled back because I felt that the effort it takes to make a beginning again in a completely different culture, context, society, etc., would be far too much. So your parents have made a huge sacrifice for you. Of course, you can always turn back and ask me, well, so what? That was their choice. Why should we bother? Well, if you think like that, maybe I'll have nothing more to say. But it would be gracious on your part if you realize that the opportunities that you enjoy today have been paid for by them through hard work, through enterprise, and through this enormous act of faith in leaving the land and the people they were familiar with and venturing into what was completely unknown. Now, final word, and this I would say to the parents. Parents, first of all, I thank you for showing the sense of enterprise in going into an unfamiliar and challenging situation and making a new beginning and making it good. I know what efforts it took. I know what powers of endurance it takes to do this. You have done very well. In fact, to the extent that I have seen Malayali families in the United States, each one of them is doing quite well, and it's something to be proud of. But I request you to understand that you took on your own a very bold decision, made a choice to go into a different society. Please understand that as a result of your own free choice, your children have had to grow up in that society. And when anyone grows up in a society, by virtue of doing so, that person absorbs the norms, the values, the tastes, the preferences, and the ways of that society. You grew up in Kerala, therefore you absorbed Kerala. Your children are in the United States of America or England or what have you, they are absorbing the United States of America or whichever country they are growing up in. And you must have the grace to understand that. After all, they are not responsible for their predicament. You can't expect young people to be torn between two completely contrary cultures. And if you expect that of your children, you would be imposing on them destructive tensions and obligations. It doesn't help. So parents have to be wise in realizing that they cannot put the clock back. After all, they want to continue to be in the societies or countries that they've chosen. Many of them have taken citizenship, and therefore there is no turning back. So that being the case, please stretch yourself gladly, voluntarily, as a matter of free choice. Stretch yourself in accommodating the special needs your children, particularly in their teens, have, to be part of the new society. And your children cannot be part of that society without accepting its ways. Just as your acquired habits and ways are very important for you, so also the new set of habits and ways are important for your children. At any rate, whether it is for you or for your children, one thing is common, and that is all cultures, all cultural norms, all cultural assumptions are relative. There is nothing absolute about any culture. Kerala culture is not absolute. Kerala culture is not perfect. Kerala culture is not ultimate. The same with the American culture or British culture or what have you. All cultures are limited, they are relative, and they are all in a flux. And therefore, this idea of this culture being superior to the other culture, this culture being more humane, more family oriented, etc. My own lifelong analysis has convinced me that many of the stereotypical assumptions that we entertain about cultures are misplaced. For example, there is this assumption that if you marry a village girl, she will be a better homemaker. It's very likely there are many very good homemakers in rural Kerala, but that doesn't mean that every rural girl is a superior homemaker than a girl who grows up in a town or a metropolis. Likewise, there is an assumption that Indian women are better homemakers than white women. That's not true. My nephew has married a Canadian girl, and I'm impressed with the way she's building the house, looking after the house. Incredible. So we need to be somewhat critical of the stereotypical assumptions and learn to be more understanding in the ways we relate to each other. There are atmospheric disturbances, so I'm going to conclude. So I commend these thoughts based on personal experiences and observations to you, and I hope that you find this relevant and useful. Thank you.